Sir, very happy morning to all. Sir, in the last class, we have talked about what is the time limit for issue of tax invoice if you are a supplier of goods. What is the time limit for issue of tax invoice if you are a supplier of services. Today, if you are a supplier of goods or supplier of services, sir, for both of you, certain other provisions will be applicable. That's what 31 subsection 3. 31 subsection 3 clause A is talking about revised invoice on issuance of what? RC. On issuance of what? What this 31 subsection 3 is talking about, get the background, my dear lovable students, then you will be able to appreciate or understand very well. So, my dear lovable students, sir, I will be starting the business from 1st of April. If I start the business from 1st of April on a particular day, let you take any day, there is no problem about it. You will start supplying what? Goods or services or both. Up to the threshold limit, that means up to 10 lakh or 20 lakh or 40 lakh, you are not liable to take the registration. For example, today your turnover has exceeded 10 lakh, 20 lakh or how much lakh? 40 lakh. My dear lovable students, you are supposed to take the registration, but that registration cannot be taken today itself. Today my turnover exceed how much lakh? The 10 lakh, 20 lakh or 40 lakh as the. But today itself I cannot take the what? Registration. There should be a breathing space in the act. The act is saying that within 30 days of you are liable for registration, you have to get registered. For example, today if my aggregate turnover exceed 10 lakh, 20 lakh or 40 lakh as the case may be, I am supposed to take the registration within how many days? So, this is actually the point of liable for registration. But I am having a breathing space of how many days? 30 days. So, I have taken registration only here. That means, I am liable to collect the tax from this period itself. For that intervening period itself, I am liable to what? Collect the tax. I am liable to collect tax in that intervening period itself. Are you all ready with me, sir? So, my dear lovable students, during this intervening period, I am supposed to raise the what invoice? Tax invoice as per section 31. Because I am supposed to raise the tax invoice at the time of sending the goods out of my factory gate. But since I don't got the RC registration certificate, I can't issue a what invoice? Tax invoice during this period of 30 days. Because, why? Because my dear lovable students, the reason is I don't have the GST number. Without GST number, I can't issue a what invoice? So during this period, I will raise only what? Invoice. Not the, once I get the RC on this date, whatever, sir, invoices I have issued during this period has to be issued within 1 month. Within how much month? So, within 1 month from the date of receipt of RC, what I am supposed to do is, I have to revise the tax invoice, whatever I have issued. During the period of 30 days. This is called as revised tax invoice. So I'll be explaining this with this background. Try to understand. Section 31 subsection 3 clause A is talking about what tax invoice. So earlier I gave the invoice. Now I am changing that invoice into what invoice? Revised tax invoice. What tax invoice? So, revise invoice on issue of registration certificate. Section 31 subsection 3 clause A, read with rule 53 sub rule 2. A registered person may, within how much month? From the date of issuance of certificate of registration. That means, once you are liable for registration, my dear lovable students, you have to take the registration within how many days? 30 days. You are liable to take registration within 30 days. Once you get the RC, from there take a breathing time of 1 month. So here is the point where I am liable to take what? Registration. I have to take registration within 30 days. If I get the registration from that point, take how much month time? 1 month time. Within the 1 month time, whatever invoices you have issued during the date of liable for registration till the date of grant of RC, you have to revise the invoice. That is called as revised what invoice. So a registered person may, within how much month? From the date of issue of what of registration, and in such manner as may be prescribed, issue a revised invoice against the invoice already issued during the period beginning with the effective date of registration till the date of issuance of certificate of what to him. So if today my aggregate turnover exceed 10 lakh or 20 lakh or 40 lakh as the case may be, from today onwards I am liable to take the registration. But there is a breathing space of how much days? 30 days. Once I apply for registration and I got the registration within how many days? 30 days. From the date of receipt of what? RC, my dear lovable students. From there, 1 month, whatever invoices I have issued, from the date of liable for registration till the grant of RC, I have to revise that invoice called as revised what invoice. This provision is necessary. Why this provision is there in the Act? This provision is necessary as a person who become what for registration? Has applied for registration within of become liable for registration. Once I am liable for registration, I am having a breathing space of how many days? 30 days. When such an application is made within the time period, registration is granted. Effective date of registration is the date on which the person become what for registration. For example, sir, if this date my aggregate turnover exceed 10 lakh or 20 lakh or 40 lakh as the, I am having a breathing space of how much days? Within 30 days, if I apply for registration, my dear lovable students, then even though I got the RC only on this day, it will be treated as if I got registered from this day. Are you all really with me? That means if I am a good boy, what do you mean by good boy? If I apply the registration within how many days? 30 days. Even though I am getting registration after 30 days, the effective date of registration will be the date of what for registration? Liable for registration. Date of liable for registration. Are you really with me? Yes, sir. Date of liable for registration. So, thus there would be a time lag. Surely there will be a time lag between the date of grant of certificate of what? Registration and the what date of registration? Effective date of. Because effective date of registration is the date on which I am liable to take the registration. But the RC has been granted within 1 month. So, there is a what gap? Time gap. Sir, for supply made by such person during this what period? The law enabled the issuance of revised invoice so the ITC can be availed by the recipient on such supply. This is what? Revised what invoice. I will give you example, man. 2 examples I will give you. Sarabhai Private Limited commenced business of supply of goods on what April? 1st April in what? Delhi. Its turnover exceeded the applicable threshold limit on what September? 3rd September. So once their turnover exceed the applicable threshold limit on 3rd September, they are liable to take registration within 30 days. Am I right, sir? Thus it become liable to register on what? 3rd September. It applied for registration on 29th September and granted RC on 5th October. Have they applied for registration within 30 days? That means they are a what boy? Good boy. Once they are good boy, the effective date of registration will not be the date on which the RC has been issued. The effective date of registration is the date on which they are liable for registration. Since it is applied for registration within how many days? Of become liable to registration, registration granted is effecting from what September? So, Sarabhai Private Limited may issue what invoice? On or before 5th November. You know why? When they got the RC, 5th October they got the RC. Right, sir? From there, they will again get a breathing space of how much month? 1 month. It is not again 30 days. The first period is how many days? 30 days. That is to dash the registration. Take the registration. Whereas, from the date of RC, my dear lovable students, within how much month? So, when they get the RC, 5th October they got the RC. 5th October means, sir, on or before 5th what? November. In respect of taxable supply, affected between 3rd September and 5th October. So whatever supply they made between the effective date of registration till the date of grant of RC, they have to revise the invoice. Such a revision is called as revised what invoice? Tax invoice as per section 31 subsection 3 what A? Clause A. Comfortable. Coming to the second one. XYZ Private Limited commenced business of supply of goods on what April? 1st April in Rajasthan. Its turnover exceeded 40 lakh on 5th November. So, since they are exclusively engaged in supply of goods, the threshold limit is not 10 lakh, not 20 lakh, it is how much lakh? 40 lakh. It exceeded on 5th November means they are having a breathing space of 30 days. Thus, it become liable for registration on 5th November. It applied for registration on 28th November and granted registration certificate on 3rd December. You tell me, have they applied for registration within 30 days? Yes, sir. That means they are a good boy or bad boy? Good boy. Since it applied for registration within 30 days of become liable for registration, it was granted registration with effect from what? 5th November. XYZ Private Limited may issue revised what invoice? Tax invoice in respect of taxable supply affected between 5th November and 3rd December. So whatever invoices they have made, my dear lovable students, from the effective date of registration till the date of grant of RC, they can revise the invoice. Such an invoice is called as revised what invoice? Are you getting the concept? So I'm summarizing. One line summary of the entire discussion is, once you start selling goods or services or both, immediately you are not liable to take the registration. You are not liable to take the registration till the threshold limit exceed 10 lakh, 20 lakh or 40 lakh as the case may be. My dear lovable students, from the threshold limit, once your turnover crosses the threshold limit, you are liable to take the registration. But that day, that second itself, you are not liable to take the registration. You are having a breathing space of how many days? Within 30 days, if you are applying for registration and if the registration is granting, you are a good boy. Once you become a good boy, the effective date of registration will not be the date of grant of RC. Effective date of registration will be the date on which you are liable to take the registration. But there is a period where which you can't issue a valid tax invoice. The period is during the effective date of registration till the date of grant of RC. During this period also you are supposed to collect the output tax. That means the recipient should be able to take it as what? ITC. In order to take ITC, you should possess valid tax paying document. In order to have a valid tax paying document, whatever invoices you have issued during this intervening period has to be revised, called as revised what invoice? Tax invoice. As per section 31, subsection 3, clause A. Concept clear? Coming to consolidated revised tax invoice, there is another concept called as consolidated revised tax invoice. What is the concept, man? Consolidated revised? Consolidated revised tax invoice. The registered person may issue consolidated revised what invoice? In respect of all taxable supply made to a recipient who is not registered under the act during such period. That means during this intervening period, my dear lovable students, what is that intervening period? Intervening period means the period between the effective date of registration till the date of grant of. Okay, man, during this period you have to analyze, sir, what you are supposed to analyze. Have you supplied to a registered person or what person? If you are supplying to a registered person, he has to take what? ITC. So individually, you have to issue the revised what invoice? Tax invoice. But if you are supplying to a what person? Unregistered person. Hello, sir. He don't want what? ITC. Because that guy is a unregistered person. So don't issue individually revised tax invoice. Issue what? Consolidated revised tax invoice. Consolidated. So you have to analyze that intervening period. During that intervening period, have we supplied to a registered person or unregistered person? If we supply to a registered person need to take ITC. So we have to individually issue the revised tax invoice. But if we have supplied to a unregistered person, he don't want to take ITC. Instead of issuing individual revised tax invoice, we have to issue the consolidated revised tax invoice. Comfortable? So the registered person may issue a dash tax invoice, consolidated invoice, in respect of all taxable supply made to a recipient who is not registered under the act during such period. Sir, consolidated revise what invoice? Tax invoice in case of what state supply? During that period, my dear lovable students, the another concept they are saying is consolidated revise what invoice? In case of interstate supply, where the value of supply does not exceed how much? That means the value does not exceed, individual invoice does not exceed 2,50,000. A consolidated revised tax invoice may be issued separately in respect of all recipient located in a state who are not registered under the act. That means we are talking about that intervening period. What is that intervening period? That should be very clear. The intervening period means the date of effective date of registration till the date of grant of what? RC, registration certificate. So my dear lovable students, this intervening period is very important. This intervening period starts from effective date of registration till its end on the date of grant of RC. Comfortable? During this period, you would have supplied to a registered person or what person? Unregistered person. If you are supplying to a registered person, that registered person need to take what? ITC, mandatory in nature. Mandatory in nature. So that for them, we can't issue consolidated revise what invoice? Tax invoice. There is, sir, no option of issuing consolidated revise what invoice? Tax invoice. Comfortable, sir? So we have to issue revise what invoice? Tax invoice. That to individual revise tax invoice. Now, if the supply is to a what person? Unregistered person, that supply can be classified into two categories. Number one, state-wise. What wise, man? Other than state-wise. State-wise and other than state-wise. Sir, what do you mean by state-wise, my dear lovable students? State-wise is very simple. State-wise means, sir, for Kerala, I have made supply from Tamil Nadu. For example, 10 rupees I made, 20 rupees I made, 50 rupees I made, 1000 rupees I made, 10,000 rupees I made, 15,000 rupees I made. Hello, sir. For all this supply, since the value of supply is less than how much? 2,50,000. I can issue state-wise consolidated revise what invoice? So, consolidated revise tax invoice can be issued only to an unregistered person, not to a registered person. Hello, sir. So, for one state, okay, I can issue one invoice. For example, this much invoice has been supplied. That's what they are talking about. Sir, in case of that state supply, interstate supply, where the value of supply does not exceed how much? A consolidated invoice may be issued separately in respect of all the recipient located in a state who are not registered under the act. So, what is the concept I am revising, finalizing? Revised what invoice? Tax invoice. To be issued in respect of taxable supply affected during this period. Which period? From the effective date of registration till the date of issuance of certificate. Right, sir? Sir, in that period, we will even issue consolidated revise what invoice? In respect of taxable supply made to a what recipient? Unregistered. During that intervening period, you may supply to a registered person or unregistered person. If it is to a what person? Registered person, my dear lovable students, you can issue only the revised tax invoice. But if that person is an unregistered person, you can issue consolidated revised tax invoice. Sir, in case of what state supply? Consolidated revised tax invoice cannot be issued in respect of all the unregistered recipient of value supply exceeds how much? During this period. If the value of supply exceeds 2,50,000, you have to again issue individual tax invoice, not the consolidated revised tax invoice. But if the value of supply put together in a state is less than how much? 2,50,000. Then, my dear lovable students, you can issue consolidated revise. Particulars of debit note and credit note are also same as revised what invoice. Any debit note or credit note issued during that intervening period, even that also has to be revised once you got the RC. That is a story of 31, subsection 3, clause A. Comfortable, sir? So, any registered person need this 31 subsection 3 clause A. Because if you are liable for registration, you can't take the registration today itself. There is a breathing space of how much days? 30 days, my dear lovable students. Hello, sir. So you will take 30 days for registering. So from the effective date of registration till the date of grant of RC, you will be making taxable supply of goods or services or both. For that and all, you are supposed to collect the tax, right? So, but you can't issue a valid what invoice? Tax invoice. So get the RC within 1 month from the receipt of the RC. Whatever invoices you have issued during that intervening period, you have to revise that. Such a concept is called as revised what invoice. And if that supply is to an unregistered person, anyway, he is not going to take what? ITC. Why are you again issuing invoice and unnecessarily creating so much of burden? So my dear lovable students, what you are supposed to do, you just issue a consolidated revised tax invoice. Comfortable, sir? Coming to the next concept. Consolidated what invoice? Tax invoice. This is not consolidated revised tax invoice and all. Consolidated what invoice? For example, I am normal taxable person. My RC and all came. I started my business. Hello, sir. Business is going on. Sir, no tax invoice if the value is less than how much? So here they are basically applying the materiality concept. What they are saying is, for example, you are a stationery shop, normal stationery shop, which is located near to A&M classes. Rubber, 5 rupees. Pencil, sir, 10 rupees. Pen, 10 rupees. Stapler, 30 rupees. They are selling. For everything, if you have to issue the what invoice? Tax invoice, then my dear lovable students, the stationery cost will be so much to the supplier. Correct? So what they have to do is, they have to just note what is the daily supply. For example, today morning, okay, one rubber sold for rubber cost 10 rupees. One sharpener sold 15 rupees. One pen sold 25 rupees. Is this individually less than 200? Is this individually one bill less than 200? Yes, sir. Then before that particular day, they close the shop. They have to raise one tax invoice called as consolidated. This is not for the first person, man, which is for a normal person. Sir, I am liable to take registration. I took the registration. I got the RC within 1 month. For that intervening period, I have revised whatever, sir, invoices I have issued. All those steps done. Now, my dear lovable students, a registered person other than the supplier engage in making supply of services. Supply of what? By way of admission to exhibition of what film? Cinematographic film in multiplex screens. That means cinema tickets, even if it is less than 200 rupees, they have to mandatorily issue the tax invoice. Because majority of the film ticket will be less than what? 200 only. So this provision is not applicable to film tickets. So a registered person other than the supplier engage in making supply of services by way of admission of exhibition of what film? In multiplex screen may not issue a what invoice? Tax invoice. If value of goods or service or both supplied is less than how much? 200. For example, I am a supplier of goods or services or both. I am not a cinematic what man? PVR. Sir, I am not PVR. I am general supplier of goods or service or both. The value of supply does not exceed. Number 2, the recipient is what registered? Because if the recipient is registered, he has to take the ITC. If the recipient is unregistered, he don't want to take the ITC. This is the second condition has to be satisfied. And recipient does not require what? Such invoice. There are 3 conditions. Cumulatively, you have to satisfy 3 conditions. The value of goods or services or both should not exceed 200. The recipient should be unregistered. Recipient does not need invoice. Instead of such registered person shall issue a consolidated what invoice? For such supplies at the close of each day in respect of all such supplies. So my dear lovable students, if you are a supplier of goods or services or both, if the value of supply is less than 200 and if the recipient is an unregistered person and the recipient does not need the tax invoice, instead of issuing tax invoice for every supply, you are supposed to issue the consolidated what invoice. Here there is no revised concept and all. So this will be used on day-to-day basis. Day-to-day basis. Bill of supply, above provisions are also applicable to what of supply? Bill of supply. Hello, sir. So summary for consolidated tax invoice. Consolidated tax invoice shall be issued for the following supply at the close of what day? If how many conditions are satisfied? Value of supply is less than recipient does not require such invoice. Comfortable? We are having one question to apply. Gemini Traders is a trader dealing in stationery item. How I said for a stationery shop. It is registered under GST and has taken the following sales during the day. Kamlesh Traders, a registered retail dealer under composition levy. He is a registered person. One of the condition is that recipient should be a. So for this guy, you have to issue the what invoice? Tax invoice. Kalpesh Stationery, a unregistered trader, 425. Sir, that guy is an unregistered person, but the value of supply exceed. So for this guy also, consolidated tax invoice concept will not be. Hussain Paint, a dash registered. What is amount? 675. Sir, the recipient is a unregistered person where the value exceeds 200. Shanti Charitable Trust, an unregistered entity, 195. If they don't want tax invoice, then we can issue consolidated. Manisha, a student unregistered, 140. Sir, since her value is less than 200, recipient is. And if she don't want what invoice? Tax invoice, we can issue the consolidated. None of the recipient require a tax invoice. Super, sir. So third condition has also been. Determine in respect of which of the above supply Gemini Traders may issue a consolidated what invoice instead of tax invoice at the end of the day. According to our research, 4 and 5 is possible. Shanti Charitable Trust and Manisha. Are you really with me? In the given illustration, Gemini Traders can issue a consolidated what invoice only with respect to supply made to Shanti Charitable Trust worth how much rupees? And Manisha worth how much? As the value of goods supplied to these recipient is less than how much? As also these recipients are unregistered and don't require a what invoice. As regard the supply made to Kamlesh Traders, although the value of goods supplied to is less than how much? Kamlesh Traders is registered under GST. One of the condition is that recipient should be a. Consolidated tax invoice cannot be issued for supply of goods made to Kalpesh Stationaries and Hussain, although both of them are what registered. Because the reason for the same is that value of goods supplied is not less than. So in order to issue a consolidated what invoice? Tax invoice, 3 conditions has to be cumulatively satisfied. Condition number 1, value of supply should not exceed 200. Recipient should be a unregistered person, and also recipient does not require the tax invoice. If these 3 conditions cumulatively satisfied, then instead of issuing tax invoice in each case, you can issue consolidated tax invoice. Shall I move to the next one? The third category, third type of invoice called as 31 subsection 3 clause C. Bill of supply instead of tax invoice to be issued in case of exempted supply or what levy. Sir, I am not engaged in supply of taxable goods or services. Because if I am engaged in taxable goods or services, my dear lovable students, I have to issue the what invoice? Tax invoice. I am engaged a person who are supplying exempted goods which are covered under section 11 or section 6 of the act. A registered person supplying exempted what or what or what? Goods or services or both. Or paying tax under the provisions of section 10. What is section 10? Composition scheme. Shall issue instead of issue a what invoice? A bill of supply containing such particulars in such manner as may be prescribed. So my dear lovable students, if you are a dealer of exempted goods or services or both, or if you are a composition dealer, don't issue the what invoice? Tax invoice. You have to issue the bill of supply issued by such person does not contain the detail pertaining to the what of tax and what of tax, amount of tax. Further value to be mentioned in the bill of supply is also what, not also what value? Taxable value. Because in bill of supply you should not include the rate of tax, because only an exempt supply there is no tax at all, right? So when you are raising the what of supply, bill of supply, and in that bill of supply there should not be any what of tax, rate of tax. And further value to be mentioned in the what of supply is not also what value. Example, man. Patel and Sons is a manufacturer of goods who has opted for composition levy under 10.1 or 10.2a. 10.1 and 10.2. It will issue a what of supply? to the buyers of the goods and not the what invoice. Because two people is supposed to issue bill of supply. One is those who are engaged in exempt supply of goods or service or both, and also a composition levy under section what? 10. Ramesh and Sons is a manufacturer of goods who has opted for composition levy under section 10. Sir, it will issue a what of supply to the buyers of goods and not the what invoice, as it does not collect any tax from the buyers but amount at the rate specified under section 10. Comfortable, sir? But no bill of supply. That means exception to the what of supply. Sir, if you are engaged in taxable goods or services or both, I am supposed to issue the tax invoice. But if three conditions are satisfied, like if the value of supply does not exceed 200, recipient is an unregistered person and the recipient does not need the tax invoice, instead of tax invoice, we can issue consolidated tax invoice. Right? Right? So, we can classify the, sir, supplier like this. Supplier, you may be supplier of goods or services or both. Classified into two categories. You may be deal with taxable supply of what or what or what. Goods or services or both. Or exempted supply of goods or services or both plus the composition levy. If this is the case, man, generally they are supposed to issue what invoice? Tax invoice. But if three conditions satisfied, instead of what invoice? Tax invoice, they can issue consolidated tax invoice. Now, generally these guys will issue bill of supply. Bill of supply. So, these guys are asking, if we also satisfy how many conditions? Three conditions. Will you give us an option of consolidated what of supply? Bill of supply. Consolidated bill of supply. Consolidated bill of supply. That's what the concept here. No bill of supply if the value is less than how much? The registered person may not issue a what of supply if the value of goods or service or both is supplied less than how much? Subject to such condition and in such manner as may be prescribed. So, my dear lovable students, if in case of a registered person may not issue a what of supply, that means if the three conditions are satisfied, he is not supposed to issue a what of supply? Bill of supply. He can issue a consolidated what of supply. Bill of supply shall have QR code. However, the government may by notification on the recommendation of the council and subject to such condition and restriction as mentioned therein, specify that bill of supply shall have what code. So what is the one line summary of it? Bill of supply shall be issued by a what person? No tax invoice if supplying exempted goods or service or both and paying tax under what levy. So if you are a registered person, if you are engaged in supply of exempted goods or services or both or paying tax under what levy? Composition levy. My dear lovable students, you are entitled to issue a bill of supply. But again, if you satisfy three conditions, if the value of supply does not exceed 200 and the recipient is a, and the recipient does not need tax invoice, that means basically bill of supply, you can issue consolidated. So we have done with 31 subsection 3 clause A, 31 subsection 3 clause B, 31 subsection 3 what? Clause C. What is 31 subsection 3 clause A? Revised tax invoice. What is 31 subsection 3 clause B? Consolidated tax invoice. It's not revised, consolidated tax invoice. What is 31 subsection 3 clause C? Bill of supply. Now 31 subsection 3 clause D is receipt voucher. What voucher? For example, my dear lovable students, you are paying some advance. You are going to attend a class at A&M classes. For that, you are paying the fees as what? Advance. So, I got some money. I have to give the what voucher? Receipt voucher. For advances, issue of what voucher? Under 31 subsection 3 what D? A registered person shall, on receipt of what payment, with respect to any supply of goods or services or both, issue a what voucher or any other document containing such particulars as may be prescribed, evidencing the receipt of what payment? Such payment. That means when you are giving advance to me or any supplier of goods or services or both, my dear lovable students, they are supposed to issue a receipt voucher. What voucher? Sir, what is the rate of tax and nature of supply? Rate of tax to be how much percent? And supply to be what state supply? If the same is not determinable at the time of receipt of advance. At the time of receipt of advance, sir, I don't know what is the rate of tax. The rate of tax will be how much percent? And sir, I don't know whether it is intra-state supply or treat it as what supply. Where at the time of receipt of advance, the rate of tax is not determinable. Tax shall be paid at how much percent? And the nature of supply is not determinable. Same shall be treated as what state supply. Comfortable, sir? So, my dear lovable students, what is 31 subsection 3 clause A? Revised tax invoice. What is 31 subsection 3 clause B? Consolidated tax invoice. What is 31 subsection 3 clause C? Bill of supply. What is 31 subsection 3 clause D? Receipt voucher. What voucher? Next one, 31 subsection 3 clause E, e-fund voucher. What voucher? E-fund voucher. What voucher? E-fund voucher. Because it is clause E. I am going to give you the e-fund. Refund. Come on. Sir, you gave me an advance, but I am not in a position to supply the goods or services or both. Then I have to return that money. Hello, sir. Then I have to refund the fees. So at that time, I have to issue a document called as what voucher? E-fund voucher. Sir, refund voucher if no supply is made and advance refunded as per 31 subsection 3 what E. Sir, where on the receipt of what payment? Advance payment with respect to any supply of what or what or what? The registered person issues a what voucher? But subsequently no supply is made and no tax invoice is issued in pursuance thereof. The said registered person may issue to the person who had made the payment a refund voucher against what payment? That means, my dear lovable students, you got an advance. For example, you need either supply of goods or services or both. You paid somewhat advance. Once you paid that advance, what document you have to issue? Once you pay advance, what document you have to issue? Receipt voucher. Receipt voucher. After issuing receipt voucher, there are only two possibilities. Sir, supply made, no supply made. Supply made, no supply made. Sir, if supply made, my dear lovable students, then you have to issue the what invoice. If no supply made, then my dear lovable students, you have to issue the refund voucher. What voucher? So if you are making supply, raise the tax invoice. If you are not able to make the supply, issue the... So first you will be getting the advance. So where on the receipt of advance with respect to any supply of what or what or what? The registered person first issue a what voucher? Actually, after issuing the receipt voucher, I have to provide you the supply. But subsequently no supply is made. Sir, I was not able to provide you the supply and no tax invoice is issued in pursuance thereof. The said registered person may make issue to the person who has made the payment a refund voucher against such payment. Comfortable, sir? So 31 subsection 3 clause F, invoice requirement in case of what charge? We studied reverse charge, 9.3 reverse charge, 9.4 reverse charge, 9.5 eco charge, 5.3, 5.4, 5.5. Comfortable, sir? Sir, purchases from a what supplier? Or under what charge? Buyer is to prepare an invoice. Buyer is to prepare an... So, registered person who is liable to pay tax under 9.3 or 9.4. We know 9.3 notification, girls notification. Goods transport agent, insurance agent, recovery agent, legal services by an arbitral tribunal, security service and sponsorship services. So, if you are the recipient of girl services, if you are the recipient of what services? Girl services. Hello, sir. And 9.4, what is 9.4? Builder, promoter, RCM, cement, up to 80%, beyond 80%, right, man? Shall issue an invoice in respect of what or what or what? Received by him from the supplier who is not registered on the date of receipt of what or what or what. So if the supplier of the 9.3 or 9.4 is an unregistered person and the recipient is a registered person, the recipient is supposed to raise the what invoice. So not only the tax liability will fall on the head of the recipient, but also the person who are supposed to raise the invoice is also the recipient. Comfortable? Thus, a recipient is liable to pay tax by virtue of what 3? 9.3 has to issue invoice only when the supply has been received from a what supplier. For example, there is a GTA, that GTA is an unregistered person. But the 7 specified person located in taxable territory is receiving supply from GTA. The 7 specified person who are located in taxable territory is the person liable to pay tax and also to issue the invoice. The recipient is liable to pay tax on what basis? Where he receives supply of such what, which are notified for what charge purpose. Such supply can be received from a registered, or if that guy is a registered person, he himself will issue the invoice. At that time, the recipient is having only liability to pay the tax. But if the supplier is unregistered person, the recipient first has to raise the invoice and also he has to pay the tax. On what basis? RCM basis. Further, a builder or the promoter is required to pay GST on what charge basis? Under 9.4, in one or more of the following cases. We already studied this notification. A builder or promoter must purchase how much person? Of the input and input service used in supplying these service from what person? In case of shortfall, he is required to pay tax under what charge? On all such what supply? Inward supply, to the extent short of the inward supplies from what supplier? That means in case of a builder, sir, the condition is at least 80% he should purchase from the registered person. For example, only 60% he purchased from the registered person. There is a gap of 20%. For that gap of 20%, he is supposed to pay tax under RCM. Under what 4? 9.4. Where cement is received from what person? Promoter or builder has to pay tax on such supply of cement on what charge basis? And GST on capital goods is payable by the promoter on what basis? Same basis. So, if you are a supplier of 9.3 or 9.4, and if you are an unregistered person, the recipient being a registered person, first he is supposed to issue the what invoice? As per 31 subsection 3 clause F. Clause F. And he is supposed to pay tax on RCM. So additional liability is placing in the head of the recipient. But if the supplier is a registered person, then he has to just to only pay the tax. Hello, sir. Issue of what voucher? Payment voucher. Issue of what voucher? A registered person who is liable to pay tax under what or what? 9.3 or 9.4 shall issue a what voucher? At the time of making dash to the supplier. For example, if you are making payment to the GTA, sir, first you only is entitled to issue the invoice as per section 31 subsection 3 class F. Hello, sir. And once you make the payment to that guy, you have to issue another document called as what voucher, man? Payment voucher. As per 31 subsection 3 clause G. So, F and G is based on 9.3 and 9.4. Appreciating, sir? Discuss the provisions relating to issue of invoice or document in the following circumstances. Sir, advance payment is received against a supply, but subsequently no supplies are made. You tell me, first, when you get the advance payment, what you are supposed to be issued? Receipt voucher. But if you are not able to make the supply, what you are supposed to give? As per section 31 subsection 3 clause E of the What Act, where advance payment with respect of any supply of goods or service or both, the registered person issued a what voucher, but subsequently no supply are made and no tax invoice is issued in what thereof. Said registered person may issue to the person who had made payment a refund voucher against such payment. Comfortable, sir? Sir, goods are sent on approval for sale or return and are removed before the supply take place. Is there any due date for raising the invoice? Yes, sir. In case of sale or return basis, you are supposed to raise the invoice on or before the date of or from the date of removal, whichever is. So, as per section 31 subsection 7 of the What Act, where the goods are sent on approval for sale or what? Return and are removed before the what take place? Supply take place. The invoice shall be issued before or at the time of supply or from the date of removal, whichever is. Very super, sir. Mr. Mohan provide continuous supply of service to his client, where the due date for payment for such service is not ascertainable. If the due date is not ascertainable, sir, you are supposed to raise the invoice on or before the date of receipt of the amount. No advance has been received in this behalf. So as per 31 subsection 5 of CGST Act, in case of continuous supply of service where the due date of payment is what ascertainable from the contract, invoice shall be issued before or at the time when the supplier of services what the payment receives the payment. Comfortable, sir? So these are the additional document you need if you are a supplier of goods or services or both. That means, sir, if you are a supplier of service, goods or services or both, 31 subsection 3 clause A, 31 subsection 3 clause B, 31 subsection 3 clause C, 31 subsection 3 clause D, 31 subsection 3 clause E, 31 subsection 3 clause F, and 31 3 subsection. What is 31 subsection 3 clause A? Revised invoice on issuance of what? RC. Once you get the RC, within 1 month, whatever invoices you have issued during the intervening period have to be revised, called as revised what invoice? Tax invoice. Comfortable? 31 subsection 3 clause B is no tax invoice if the value is less than how much? That means if 3 conditions are satisfied, if the value of supply is less than 200, the recipient is an unregistered person, and yes, sir, if the recipient does not need the tax invoice, instead of issuing tax invoice, you can issue consolidated tax invoice. Consolidated. What is 31 subsection 3 clause C? Are you a supplier of exempted goods or services or both? Or are you a composition dealer? Don't issue what invoice. Instead of tax invoice, issue. And even for you, if you are satisfying 3 conditions, my dear lovable students, instead of bill of supply, you can issue consolidated bill of supply. Comfortable? 31 subsection 3 clause D, receipt voucher for what? Advances. Receipt voucher for what? Advances. My dear lovable students, sir, let it be anyone. If you get any advance, the document what you are supposed to be issued is receipt voucher. Is receipt voucher. If you are able to provide the supply, please convert the receipt voucher into tax invoice. If you are not able to provide the supply, convert that into refund voucher. What voucher? And sir, FG is applicable for 93 and 94. 93 and 94. If the supplier of the 93 and 94 are unregistered person, if they are not able to issue the tax invoice, and if the recipient is a registered person, the recipient is the person who are responsible to raise the invoice as per 31 subsection 3 clause F. Hello, sir? And this recipient will make the consideration, pay the consideration to the supplier. At that time, they have to issue what voucher, man? Payment voucher as per 31 subsection 3 clause G. So FG is for 31, FG is for 93 and 94. Are you comfortable, sir? So in this chapter, till now what we have completed is, my dear lovable students, sir, supply includes all forms of supply of goods or services or both, such as sale, barter, transfer, exchange, license, lease, rental or disposal made or agreed to be made for a consideration by a person in the course or furtherance of business. Right? Sir, if you are a supplier of goods, when I am supposed to raise the tax invoice, question arises, the answer is in 147. 31 subsection 1, 31 subsection 4, 31 subsection 7. What types of good you are dealing? Whether a supply involves movement of goods, supply does not involve movement of goods, continuous supply of goods, or sale or return basis. Sir, if I am a supplier of services, 2, 5, 6. 31 subsection 2, 31 subsection 5, and 31 subsection 6. So supply includes all forms of supply of what or what or what. So if I am a supplier of goods, what is the time limit to raise the tax invoice? If I am a supplier of services, what is the time limit to raise the tax invoice? Sir, if I may be supplier of what and what? Goods and services. What are the other documents I need? As per clause A, I need revised tax invoice. As per clause B, I need consolidated tax invoice. As per clause C, bill of supply. As per clause D, receipt voucher. As per clause E, refund voucher. And as per clause F, sir, buyer is the person who is supposed to prepare if he is purchased from an unregistered person. And clause G, issue of what voucher. Sir, we are having only one more chapter in this unit, in this chapter, my dear lovable students. Other provisions of what and what, man? Debit note and credit note. Which in the coming slot we'll be talking about 31A. Sir, section 32. Then, sir, section 33. and section 34 debit note and what? And we'll be doing the contents of the what invoice? Tax invoice. If you are issuing tax invoice, in that tax invoice, what and all contents should be there? How a tax invoice should be as per the GST Act. Then we'll be talking about HSN or accounting code. We'll be talking about. Then we'll be talking about if you are supplying to export or SEZ, how you have to issue the tax invoice. What do you mean by invoice come bill of supply? What is the manner of issuing the tax invoice? How you have to issue the tax invoice? Sir, what do you mean by e-invoicing? E-invoicing means what? Who is supposed to issue the e-invoice? Like that and all we'll be talking. Take a break of 15-20 minutes. Pause the video. Revise the first chapter. That is if you are a supplier of goods, when you are supposed to raise the tax invoice. When you are supplier of services, when you are supposed to raise the tax invoice. When you are supplier of goods or services, what are the additional document you need as per 31 subsection 3 clause A, clause B, clause C, clause D, clause E, clause F and clause G. We'll be continuing with the next unit. I'm waiting here. Revise very properly for 15-20 minutes and resume your videos. Yes, sir. I hope that you would have revised. I'm moving, continuing with the same chapter. Other provisions like debit note and credit note. Because section 31 is the tax invoice. We are having an additional section called as 31A, facility for what? Payment. Sir, the government may, on the recommendation of the council, prescribe a class of registered person who shall provide prescribed modes of electronic payment to the recipient of the supplier of what or what or what made by him, and give option of such recipient to make payment accordingly in such manner and subject to such conditions and restrictions as may be. That means what government is saying, that if I am the supplier of goods or services or both, you are the recipient. You are supposed to make the online payment either by way of RTGS or bank transfer or NEFT, etc. etc. So government is saying that the supplier should provide facility to the recipient to make the payment on the prescribed means. This is a procedural section. Leave it, no need to break our head. What is section 32? Prohibition of what of tax. These people are not supposed to collect the tax. If these people collect tax, my dear lovable students, then it is called as unauthorized collection of tax. What tax? So a unregistered person not to collect what? Tax. Surely. If you are an unregistered person, you are not supposed to collect what? Tax. Only a registered person should collect a person who is not a registered person shall not collect in respect of any supply of goods or service or both any amount by way of tax under this act. That means if you are an unregistered person, you are not supposed to collect the tax. Once you collect the tax, my dear lovable students, hello sir, you will be called it as unauthorized what of tax. And registered person to collect tax as per the what? Act. Okay sir, I am not an unregistered person. I am a registered person. But for the supply of goods or service or both which I am making, the tax rate is 5%. But I am collecting 28%. Is this correct? No sir. So even if you are a registered person, you should collect tax only as per the act. So an unregistered person should not collect the what at all? Tax at all. And registered person should collect the tax as per the no registered person shall collect tax except in accordance with the provisions of the act or rules made thereunder. We'll give you one example, man. Rujuta is engaged in providing grooming services. She is not registered under the GST law as her turnover is below the what limit? Threshold limit. Rujuta cannot collect what? Tax on the what services? Grooming services provided by her. As the person who is not a registered person cannot collect any amount by way of tax under GST law in respect of any supply of what or what or what. That means, very simple, if you are a unregistered person, you are not supposed to collect any tax. If you are a registered person, you have to collect tax as per the act. As per the, if an unregistered person collect tax, it is called as unauthorized collection of tax. If a registered person collecting tax according to his will and wish, it is called as unauthorized collection of tax. So what is section 31? What invoice? Tax invoice. What is section 32? Unauthorized collection of tax. That unauthorized collection is allowed or prohibited. That's why prohibition of unauthorized collection of tax. Right. We are moving into section 33. Amount of tax to be integrated in the invoice and other documents. My dear lovable students, we understood that who is supposed to issue the tax invoice, when they are supposed to issue the tax invoice. Sir, in that tax invoice, tax amount should be indicated. In that tax invoice, tax amount should be. So amount of tax to be indicated in the what invoice? Tax invoice and other document as per section what? Notwithstanding anything contained in this act or any other law for the time being in force, where any supply is made for a consideration, every person who is liable to pay tax for such supply shall predominantly indicate in all documents relating to what? Assessment, tax invoice, other like document, amount of tax which shall form part of the price at which what is made. That means when you see the tax invoice should clearly indicate that this is the amount of what? So notwithstanding anything contained in this act. Sir, if you are issuing a tax invoice without mentioning the tax amount, how much is the CGST, how much is the SGST, or how much is the what? IGST, don't raise a what invoice. So notwithstanding anything contained in this act or any other law for the time being in force, where any supply is made for a what? Consideration. Every person who is liable to pay tax for such supply shall predominantly indicate in all documents relating to what? Assessment, tax invoice, and other like document an amount of tax which shall form part of the price at which such what is made. Now, moving to the next one, man, credit note and debit note, that is section 34. So what is the order of section? What is section 31? Tax invoice. In that section 31, 7 subsections are there. 31 subsection 1, 31 subsection 2, 31 subsection 3, 31 subsection 4, 31 subsection 5, 31 subsection 6 and 31 subsection 7. In that, sir, 147 are applicable to goods and 256 are applicable to services. Able to appreciate? Now, coming to 31A, the supplier should provide the facility to make the payment in online basis to the recipient. That's what 31A. Sir, whereas 31 subsection 2 is saying that unauthorized collection of tax. What unauthorized collection of tax is saying that? An unregistered person should not collect tax. If an unregistered person collects tax, it will be called as unauthorized collection of tax. And registered person should collect tax only as per the act. This is what section 32 is all about. 33, whoever is issuing the tax invoice, in that document, in that tax invoice, you predominantly mention the amount of tax. Whether it is CGST, SGST or IGST, or what is the amount of the CGST, SGST and what? IGST. That's what section 30. Moving to the last one called as debit note and credit note, section 34. Issuance of credit note, that's what 34 subsection 1. Sir, you have to understand accounting wise this section, then it will be very easy for you to, sir, understand what they are saying. For example, supplier is there and recipient is there. Two parties are there. One is supplier is there and recipient is there. My dear lovable students, if this supplier, assume the name is A&M and the recipient is students I supply either goods or services or both for a value of 10 lakh. What is the journal entry I should pass in my books? Students account debit. What is the entry I will pass? Students account debit to, sir, sales account, because it's an income to me. Students is a receivable. Students have to pay me how much lakh? 10 lakh. It's the income to me. So I have credited the sales. With regard to students, my dear lovable students, according to the students, it is a purchases. So what they will do? Purchases account debit, how much lakh? 10 lakh. To A&M, 10 lakh. Because it's a creditor to the students. Students are liable to pay 10 lakh to A&M. Is this entry comfortable? After passing this entry, hello sir, I am feeling that the value of supply is not 10 lakh. The value of supply is only 8 lakh. Value of supply is only So what I have to do, whether I have to debit the students or credit the students? Credit the students. What entry I should pass? Sir, sales account debit. How much lakh? 2 lakh. To students account, how much lakh? So in my books of accounts, in whose books of accounts? In A&M's books of accounts, I am going to credit the students. I am going to what the students? So I have to issue a document to debit or credit. So this is called as what note? Credit note. What note? So I will issue a credit note. Sir, when one or more what invoice, tax invoice has been issued, I have issued a tax invoice to the students. For supply of any what or what or what, the taxable value in the tax invoice is found to exceeds the taxable value in respect of what supply? Such supply. Actually, the taxable value is only how much lakh? 8 lakh. But I passed the journal entry for how much lakh? 10 lakh. So I am going to debit the student or credit the student. So I have to issue a what note. This is circumstance number 2. The tax charged in that tax invoice is found to exceed the tax payable in respect of what supply? Such supply. Actually, I should collect only 18% tax, but I have collected how much percent tax? 28% tax. Because of collecting more tax, more receivable will show with the students. Actually, that much amount students no need to pay. So I have to dash the students, credit the students. I have to. So whenever I am going to credit the students, I have to issue credit note. What note? So the number 1, the value of supply is more as compared to the actual value of supply. The rate of tax is more as compared to the actual rate of tax. Third one, where the goods supplied are what by the recipient. You said that you don't like the goods, you are going to return the goods. When you return the goods, will you still be my debtor or debtor reduces? Debtor reduces. So I have to dash you, credit you. This is circumstance number 3. And where the goods or service or both supplied are found to be what? Deficient. He said that, sir, these goods is not usable. I am going to put it on dustbin. For this goods, I am not going to pay you the amount. That means, sir, it is irrecoverable. Bad debt. I am going to what you? Credit you. So in this, how many circumstances? 4 circumstances. That's why it is 34. There are 4 circumstances in which I will credit you. Number 1, the value of supply is more. Number 2, taxes, the tax charged is more than the actual tax payable. Number 3, where the goods supplied are returned by the recipient or goods or service or both are found to be what? Deficient. Then the registered person who has supplied such goods or service or both, who supplied? A&M supplied. A&M is the supplier, may issue to the recipient. Who is the recipient? Students. 1 or more what note? For supply made in a what year? Financial year, containing such particulars as may be. That means there's a single consolidated credit note can be issued against 1 or more what invoice. For example, I can take 5 tax invoice, and for all the 5 tax invoice, I can issue a single consolidated credit note. So credit note means a document issued by the what person? I am the registered person, I am A&M. Sir, I am going to credit you in my books of accounts. That information I am going to inform you by issue of document called as what note. So this is the summary, man. In 4 circumstances, I will issue a what note. So registered supplier of what or what or what may issue credit note to the recipient of goods or service or both if the taxable value in invoice is more than taxable value in respect of such supply. That means in the invoice, I actually charged how much lakh? 10 lakh. But I should have charged only tax charged in the invoice is more than tax payable in respect of such supply. Sir, I should have charged only 18%, but I have charged where the goods supplied are returned by the recipient. Sir, that means it's a what return? Sales return for me. In case of sales return, I have to credit the debtor. So I have to issue what note? Where the goods or service or both supply are found to be what? Deficient. That means we are going to put it on dustbin, those goods. That means you will not pay any amount to me. So I am supposed to what, man? What are the details of credit note to be given in the return? 34 subsection 2. So any registered person who issues a what note? Credit note. Okay, in these 4 circumstances, you will issue a what note? Credit note. Once you issue a what note? Credit note, in relation to supply of goods or service or both, shall declare the details of such what note? Credit note, in the return for the month during which such credit note has been issued, but not later than 30th November, sir, following the end of the what year in which such supply was made, or date of filing the what return, whichever is what earlier, and tax liability shall be adjusted in such manner as may be prescribed. What they are saying, sir, for example, earlier I would have made supply for how much lakh? 10 lakh. But now I am reducing it. I am, sir, reducing to the extent of how much lakh? 2 lakh. By issue of what note? Once you issue what note, you should inform that when you are filing the return. To inform that, there is a maximum time limit. Beyond this, you can't inform. What is the maximum time limit? 30th November of the succeeding financial year. Tell me. 30th November of the succeeding financial year, or date of filing the annual return, whichever is earlier. What is the time limit? Tell me. 30th November of the succeeding financial year, or date of filing the annual return, whichever is. So, what is the general time limit? 31st of March. After March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, and what? Till 30th November, they are giving the time. Or date of filing the what return? Annual return. We know that annual return has to be furnished as per section 44. As per section. So, any registered person who issues a what note? Credit note, in relation to a supply of what or what or what, shall declare the details of such credit note. So, if I issue credit note, I understood that there are only in 4 circumstances I can issue the credit note. Once I issue the what note? Credit note, my dear lovable students, I have to inform that in the return. What is the time limit for information? In the return for the month during which such credit note has been issued. For example, if the credit note has been issued for June, in that June return itself, I have to issue the what note? Credit note. If it is for August, I have to inform in the return in the what month itself? August month itself. But if I am not able to mention that in the particular return, I am having extended time limit. That extended time limit is not later than 30th November of the succeeding what year? Financial year in which such supply was made, or date of filing the relevant annual return, whichever is. And the tax liability shall be adjusted in such manner as may be prescribed. Because earlier I would have collected tax for 10 lakh rupees. Now 10 lakh rupees is not the value of supply. I reduce how much lakh? 2 lakh. Now the value of supplies will only be 8 lakh. So I have to reduce output tax collected for the extent of how much lakh? 2 lakh. Output tax liability of the supplier not to be reduced if tax incidents what on. Sir, no reduction in what tax liability of the supplier. Who is the supplier? A&M is the shall be permitted if the incidence of tax and interest on such supply has been passed on to any other what person. For example, sir, I collected 10 lakh, I paid 10 lakh. Incidence, I have not paid from my pocket. The incidence of tax has been passed on to some other person. Then the adjustment can be done only by the some other person, not by the what? Supplier. Not by the what? Supplier. Secondary discount. Credit note need not to be what? Issued. Sir, secondary discounts, there is a concept called as secondary discount. You know what is secondary discount? Secondary discount are the discount which are not known at the time of supply or offered after the supply is already over. That means when I am making supply to you, I don't know that in future you are entitled to get the discount. But in Diwali, during Diwali season, what you have done, you know, you have achieved the target. So I am providing you the discount. Such a discount is called as. These discount are not excluded from the what of supply. Since condition laid down in 15.3 of the CGST Act are not satisfied. My dear lovable students, these discount cannot be reduced because this is post-supply discount. What supply discount? In order to reduce the post-supply discount, you have to satisfy certain condition. You have to satisfy. So it is important to note that credit note are not permitted to be issued. In the case, secondary discount are allowed by what? Supplier. Since a tax liability of the supplier does not get reduced in such case. So you have to analyze the post-supply discount. Sir, for post-supply discount, whether condition laid down in section 15 are satisfied or not. If condition laid down in section 15 are what? Satisfied, then you can issue a credit note. Then you can issue a. If the condition laid down in section 15 are not satisfied, then you cannot issue a what note? Then you have to issue a commercial credit note. What credit note? So what is the difference between credit note and commercial credit note? In credit note, tax will also be reversed. Whereas in commercial credit note, only value will be reversed. However, supplier can issue financial or what credit note? Commercial credit note. To reduce the what of supply, value of supply payable by the recipient to the supplier. So what you have to understand here is, for example, today I made a supply, my dear lovable students. In future, I am going to provide a discount. This discount is called as post-supply discount. Sir, for this post-supply discount, you have to check whether the conditions under section 15 satisfied or conditions under section 15 not satisfied. If conditions under section 15 what? Satisfied, then what has to be issued? Credit note has to be issued. Sir, conditions under section 15 is not what? Satisfied, then credit note cannot be issued. You cannot issue the what note? Then what you are supposed to be issued? Commercial credit note has to be issued. In that commercial credit note, tax element will not be there. Only what will be there? Value of supply will be there. So what we have studied till now, sir, there are 4 circumstances in which credit note has to be issued. What is the first circumstance? You supplied, sir, goods or service or both, but the value of supply is more than the actual value. Number 2, you charged, tax charged in invoice is more than the tax payable in respect of such supply. Where the goods supplied are returned by the what? Recipient. Where goods or service or both supplied are found to be deficient. Fantastic to the core. So, my dear lovable students, if you issue credit note in these 4 circumstances, you are supposed to mention in the return. Generally, that month credit note, that month return you have to show. But if you don't show in that particular month, the maximum time limit is 30th November of the succeeding financial year, or before filing the return, annual return, whichever is what earlier. Once the burden has been passed on to some other person, supplier cannot reverse the tax. Sometimes you may provide secondary discount. You have to check whether that secondary discount for which the conditions under 15 are satisfied, not satisfied. If it is satisfied, credit note can be issued. If it is not satisfied, credit note cannot be issued. Coming to the second part of the discussion called as what note? Debit note. What note? You tell me, I am the supplier, my name is A&M. You are the recipient, you are my students, my dear lovable students. Sir, I supplied goods. What is the value, man? 10 lakh. Assume the real value is not 10 lakh, the real value is 15 lakh. What I will do? I have to pass one more entry. What entry I will pass? Students account debit. How much lakh? 5 lakh. To sales account. How much lakh? 5 lakh. That means, my dear lovable students, I am going to increase the value of supply. I am going to increase the value of supply. In this time, whether I am going to debit the students or credit the students. So I have to raise a what note. So debit note means a document issued by a registered person. I am the registered person. This is a situation in which you will issue the debit note when one or more tax invoice has been issued for supply of any what or what or what. The taxable value in the tax invoice is found to be less than the taxable value in respect of such supply. The actual taxable value is 15 lakh, but I have raised invoice only for 10 lakh. So I am going to debit extra 5 lakh. So I have to issue a document called as debit note. Or the tax charged in tax invoice is to be found to be less than what payable? Tax payable. Actually 28% should be levied, but I have charged only how much percent? 18%. So there is a gap of 10%. If I levy that extra 10%, I have to debit you or credit you? Debit you. So I have to raise a document called as the registered person. Who's registered person? A&M. Who has supplied such goods or service or both shall issue to the recipient one or more what note for supply made in a financial year containing such particulars as may be prescribed. So in 4 circumstances, what note will be issued? credit note will be issued. In two circumstances, what note will be issued? That means the value of supply is less I actually shown, but the real value of supply is more. And the tax rate I shown less, but the real tax rate is what? More. Then the registered supplier of what or what or what may issue debit note to the recipient of the goods or service or both if the taxable value of the invoice is less than the taxable value of such supply. Tax charged in the invoice is less than the tax payable in respect of such supply. The same way, in any particular month, if you issue the debit note, you have to shown in the return. Sir, any registered person who issues a what note? Debit note in relation to supply of what or what or what shall declare the details of such debit note in the return for the month during which such debit note has been issued. For example, in this particular month, you have issued a debit note. That particular month itself mandatory, you have to shown in the return. Why? Because when you issue debit note, the value of supply increases. When value of supply increases, the tax liability increases. So we can't give the extended time limit and all. Understanding? Because when you issue debit note, the value of supply increases. When the value of supply increases, automatically tax liability increases. So when you issue what note? Debit note. In that particular month itself mandatory, you have to NSR shown in the return. That's why they are saying any registered person, that is ANM, who issues a debit note in relation to supply of what or what or what shall declare the details of such debit note in the return for the month during which such debit note has been issued, and tax liability shall be adjusted in such manner as may be. The expression debit note shall include a supplementary invoice. Actually, debit note means an additional invoice, because in the first invoice I shown only how much lakh? 10 lakh. But in the debit note I am going to show extra how much lakh? 5 lakh. So debit note is otherwise called as supplementary invoice. What invoice? So in this chapter, what we have discussed, we have discussed section 31A. What is section 31A? Facility for the payment. It is a responsibility of the supplier to make proper arrangement to make the payment in the prescribed mode by the recipient. That's what 31A. Next one. If you are an unregistered person, my dear lovable students, you are not supposed to collect tax. Paka? If you are a registered person, you should collect tax only as per the act. Otherwise, it will be treated as a prohibition. Now, tax should be mentioned in the what invoice? Tax invoice. If you are raising tax invoice, in that tax invoice, the amount of tax should be properly mentioned. That's what tax should be mentioned in the tax invoice. Then debit note and what note? Credit note. In 4 circumstances, credit note will be issued. Whenever you issue credit note, the value of supply reduces, the tax reduces. Whereas debit note will be raised only in 2 circumstances. Whenever you raise the debit note, the value of supply increases, the tax liability increases. Since the value of supply is going to be reduced and tax is going to be reduced, either the month in which you have issued the credit note, you have to show in the return, or 30th November of the succeeding financial year, or before filing the annual return, you are supposed to show in the return. But in case of debit note, that leisure or cushion should not be there. The month in which you have issued the what? Debit note, that month itself, you are supposed to show in the return. My dear lovable students, we are going to complete the chapter tax invoice, debit note and credit note. Only one topic is pending called as contents of what invoice? Tax invoice. Okay, fine. I understood that. Who are the person who are entitled to raise the tax invoice? How I have to raise the tax invoice? What are the contents should be there? What are the ways of invoicing tax invoice? Like e-invoice can I issue? Or manual itself I have to issue. All those discussion I'm going to make in the contents of tax invoice. That is the next chapter is all about. In that we'll be talking about 4 to 5 related topic. With that we can say that we are through with the tax invoice, debit note and credit note. So that topic I'll be dealing in tomorrow's class, my dear lovable students. You revise the full debit note, tax invoice, debit note and credit note till now by taking a 20-30 minutes time. Once you revise along with me, the level of clarity for the class will be very level. So in one class, we will complete the tax invoice, debit note and credit note. I hope that you all are very, very, very comfortable.